In this chapter, there are 7 subsections. When you start tossing in things like ethnicity, culture, religion, gender, age, circumstance, it doesn't matter. They are not relevant to the end result when you strip it all away and are left with only essence. This term in a 4th year course when we were introduced to its author, Michel Foucault, and some of his concepts. It is the perfect way to describe what I feel is one of the best effects of meditation, although my interpretation is not specifically what he meant by it. It's best to summarize the notion like this. Part of the deconstruction phase is letting go of attachments to previously held beliefs, hopes, norms, and conventions for the rebirth of a fundamentally, universally sound being, one that resonates harmoniously within and without. Now, what do I mean by this? Be a light unto oneself. Krishnamurti put it best in different terms, and it's been paraphrased as such. You have a guiding light within you where all the answers and guidance you require can be sourced. However, there can be a lot of deconstruction of our conditioning to get to this state of being, which I may add is not a destination, just a journey. You turn within and begin a vast exploration of self, examining all facets of who, what, why, when, where, how you became you. No teacher, counselor, guru can hold your hand during this process. It's a solo trip into the unknown known. This process is not a 12-step, 21-day, 7 stages, 4-part procedure. There isn't a set agenda. It flows as you grow. Your guidance comes from you. So when you sit in silence and come face to face with yourself and identify, acknowledge, and accept all elements of yourself, you begin to sift through parts of yourself that may remain, some will be discarded, and others will be adapted. This is a lifetime process, hence why I make a reference to life being a meditation. There is a congruency to this process. Earlier, I mentioned this fundamentally, universally sound being that resonates harmoniously within and without. There are universal truths or laws that govern the natural world, and as a part of this natural world, you begin to life in accord with them. Quite possibly, the allure of old desires just vanish. Religion, if I remember correctly from some of Joseph Campbell's discussions, means to go back to one's roots. So finding your religion is about finding yourself, your essence. Meditation is that process, and deconstruction is a means. The pursuit of happiness. Movies, books, songs have all been made revolving around this concept. Like most people that get enthralled by the fleeting, uplifting vibe of happiness, I decided it was part of my mission statement, as mentioned before. If you look at a body of water, a lake, river, or perhaps an ocean, happiness is the surface effect. Happiness is a wave of energy, sometimes more powerful than others. The content of the water stays the same and is always there. This is joy. Joy is not something you create, it happens. It's an occurrence that is derived from communion with the moment. There's no sense of self and time stands still. The fact that you can't control this, in my opinion, is an inherent safeguard. When you realize that you don't control joy, you just be and let things unfold as they shall. This is my closure regarding the pursuit of happiness. This is where the deconstruction has brought me through much inquiry and experimentation. I can still be, and am, happy at times, but it's not something I actively pursue as part of my personal mission statement anymore. I get enjoyment out of things more so now without labeling or judging them. If I want to change my mood to one more upbeat, I will put on music that channels my energy appropriately for that moment. Or I will light a candle and allow the flame's effects to soothe my soul. These actions are portals to the feeling of joy. I began part of the musings with a discussion using winged seed as an analogy to lead into meditation and how the process takes on a life of its own. I went into further explanation as to the benefits of the meditative process by using a sponge and its porous nature to describe life's effects on our being. This part, call it unplugged, touches upon further exploration of elements of the deconstruction process and its benefits relating to meditation as a flowering process of being. I used to read this poem by Emma LaRocque regularly on subway rides. 4 lines communicating such profound wisdom. This is the poem. Ah, loneliness, how would I know who I am without you? We cause the vast majority of our own suffering with our thought processes or unmet desires and unrealistic expectations. Meditation and liberation are colleagues in most literature. Is liberation freedom? Is it the undoing of the shackles we have placed ourselves in, intentionally and unintentionally? Sometimes we reinforce behavior patterns that we are not even aware of how they developed. This is what I mean by unintentional. Is it freedom from our unproductive selves? To me, at this stage, to keep things simple, liberation is the letting go of things that are no longer relevant. Getting rid of self-clutter that weighs one down and keeps the flow of living and learning stagnant. This is part of freedom. Hundreds of years ago, freedom meant fighting oppressive forces. Your life was on the line, the battles were physical. These still exist today as well, but freedom in a contemporary context means not being a slave to ideals, values, norms that were created and unquestioned and accepted at face value. Now, freedom also entails a sense of mastery of and acquisition of control to direct and influence one's own life. It is the melting of the illusion of not having control, or how our lives evolve, or the notion that we are not response-able. This form of freedom can also include discipline, if you may, which is an action of great integrity and self-control, not a punishment or neurotic compulsion. Consider loneliness as introduced in the poem, a great fear for many and used to be one of mine, partially because of how I had witnessed unpleasant associations with the condition of loneliness, as well as it seemed to go hand in hand with any sort of punishment I would receive, being grounded as a kid, for example, and being alone in a room to process the punishment and not quite understanding it. The thought of solitude and silence can be traumatizing unless you've explored it, embodied it, and basked in it to feel how freeing it is to enjoy a state of independence that requires no crutches. As the poem states, there are so many elements of oneself that you come face to face within loneliness, so much to learn, so many beautiful things that were not even apparent. There is great fortitude to be found in silence and solitude, and if you can't enjoy your own company, well, you have a lifetime of grief ahead of you. That's part of the beauty of exploring fear and fearful concepts. More often than not, it's not what you think, and when you elevate your awareness, the once almighty powerful energy of the fear dissipates. I'm not talking about the same kind of fear you would feel if you were confronted by an angry grizzly bear. I used to volunteer as a meditation instructor at a minimum and maximum security jail. Nowhere is freedom more predominant than inside those walls. For some, being on the wrong side of the tracks is a life sentence in correctional facilities. For others, our bodies are no different, nor are our circumstances. They too can be construed as a life sentence, and we create our own life prisons quite well. Many of our judgments prevent us from clearly seeing things as they are and limit our vision and interaction. Consider the poor me person who is clearly a victim and the world conspires against them all the time. This self-judgment muddies their vision to the beauty of daily living and the many gifts we have. Or, in a perverse way, there develops a sense of entitlement. Again, I used to, for some ass-backwards reason, view myself in such a light. You get a couple chips stacked against you, or things don't go the way you want them to, and it can create a chain of negativity. Let it be known that I realize that life is not a cakewalk for a lot of people. Some of us are blessed with great opportunity, and others face challenging dilemmas. The hardest part of being a poor me, or having a victim mentality, is that it is hard to self-assess. Raised awareness and a couple humbling wake-up calls remedied it for me, but I can't say the same for others. When you begin observing life and understanding its language, considering oneself a poor me or victim, is replaced with a sound sense of responsibility and action-driven living. What about pain? Emotional pain, the physical as well, which results in traumatic experiences, can be considered. Primarily, though, I'm discussing emotional pain and our responses to it. It's inside out in nature because the outside influenced us to go inside, which leads to the avoidance of pain of when we first encountered the painful experience, whatever it may have been. We go full circle because we have to go back inside to be able to feel from the outside again and resolve these earlier painful issues as best as possible. Isn't this a downside to meditation? Is there really a downside when one considers the long-term potential of liberation in the form of peace of mind? Part of freedom entails understanding, or better yet, knowing. We have been conditioned to not indulge in dark emotions. Things like anger can metastasize into cancers or very negative ways of thinking. Working with these emotions, sometimes with the guidance of professional counselors, facilitates liberation. Meditative processes heighten your awareness of these feelings, precursors to them, or triggers, and can facilitate ways of transmuting the energy over time into healthier elements. Freedom can be described as peace of mind. No more conflict or agitation. There are greater degrees of... This section is a collection of reflection on some conventional beliefs and meditation's influence, all tied in to the chapter title known as Deconstruction. Let me begin. It can become apparent that broader notions of our beliefs lead to a liberated self. The concept of knowledge is power. This is incomplete and only represents potential, an energy that has yet to be utilized. It's like a book sitting on a shelf. Power is knowing. Knowing is action, which is present moment awareness. Fully realizing the capacity of the information here and now, which is taking the information in the book and utilizing it. Carpe diem. What does this mean? Really, how do you seize the moment? How do you live without any regrets or manifest the most of the moment? How do you allow something that hasn't happened, the future, to inspire you to realize the opportunity of what is presented and achieve new highs? If you can't hold on to time or stop it, wherein lies the seed of this ode? Life is suffering. Sure it is. Sunsets and sunrises really suck, don't they? The energy and vibrant signs of spring unfolding are downright depressing. The serenity of watching snowfall, blanketing the ground ever so gently, is absolutely mortifying. I believe this was how the author of The Road Less Traveled started off his book, and maybe Buddha used it as a springboard for his quest into life's meaning. There are challenges, and there are those that have real hardships. This cannot be denied. We may fall on hard times at some point in our lives or be touched by death on an intimate level. These are natural processes, and at the end of the day, you always have a choice as to what mood you want to subscribe to. Awareness is half the battle. That's total horse dung. Awareness is only the tip of the iceberg. I'm aware of many things, and until I act accordingly, where the real struggles may occur if you're changing lifestyle habits, awareness does nothing for you. I know I shouldn't eat that food or make that decision, but I still choose to. The meditative process pulls no punches, and you can no longer shy away from the truth. Awareness is easily cloaked by denial. Action, being, and doing are what harness. The spiritual path is a lonely and isolating one. Actually not. It's a shared experience on an individual basis. What replaces desire when the struggle ends? What is desire? Inspiration, the energy to live and explore. You miss too much these days if you stop to think, quote unquote, by you too. If you look up the definition of meditation on, say, dictionary.com, to think or spend time in contemplation or reflection is included. Yet, if this is the case, how do you clear your mind? As hinted upon earlier, meditation is a process that teaches. It's like a winged seed that takes root, grows, and blossoms. At some point you may find that meditation leads you to a place where all you want is mental stillness or quiet, so you can perceive and observe the world as it is, without coloring it in any way, shape, or form. That ability to turn the switch on from contemplation to silence is in your control. You think that after a while you would get tired of the constant querying. Then what are you left with? Remember the word cloud entitled influence? I used to have a lot of books. Then, in one decisive move, I got rid of 95% of them, kept only the ones I felt I would reflect upon later in life. Why? You mean you haven't guessed it? I was an expert. Think about all that knowledge I had gained, all the wisdom I had integrated into my life. Okay, sincerely, it came to my attention that it was time to set myself free for a while. I'd become saturated and couldn't absorb any more. It was time to shift gears and really just be. Being is part of the human experience. This touches upon another theme in Krishnamurti's discussions, that we don't require experts to dictate our conduct. In short, borrowing from biblical tales, we don't need to worship false idols either. It's great to have guides, but it's important to disempower the concept of experts. Just because someone's written a book, for example, does not mean that they are an authority on that topic. No disrespect is meant by this, because I'm not Einstein, nor do I have any grand delusions about understanding quantum physics, and I definitely wouldn't step into an operating room and pretend to know the first thing about performing lobotomy. Yet, when you consider the notion of living and being, it's not rocket science. Isn't this a contradiction? Here I am stating, after all that I've read and experienced, as well as gone to the effort of producing a book, that essentially don't take my word for it or anyone else's. Go out and explore for yourself, blindly or slightly informed. You're right, I am. Let's look at the scientific method. You make an observation, you ask a question, you form a hypothesis, which is geared towards a prediction of outcome. You conduct an experiment, and if the result is positive, your hypothesis is true. Otherwise, you go back to the drawing board and reconfigure something. This is also known as trial and error. Now we give it a fancy label, scientist. So, living is a scientific experiment. If I want peace in my life, how do I go about creating it? One way is to assess all the things that cause distress and ascertain what elements of these you have control over and what elements you don't. For the ones you have control, you take action to alleviate or eradicate. For the elements that you don't have control over, perhaps you can mediate the effects so that they don't hold as much influence. You have become a scientist in your own life. Does meditation infer a greater ability at being a critical thinker? Do we don lab coats and begin concocting groundbreaking formulae? Or do we just scratch our heads in wonderment? Is doubt replaced with truth in this process? This is part of the reason why I ditched the majority of my books. They had become a crutch of sorts for me to lean on, and I required a dose of integrative reality. Merlin the mad scientist at work. Watch out. Really though, what is an expert? The object is to find out for yourself. No one else can tell you who you are or what your character makeup is. They may be able to offer a collection of reflections. In the absence of all that defines you, what are you left with? I entered the world back in November 1970, soon to be an adopted child of unknown nature to myself. Perhaps this is where the seed of inquiry was laid that has fueled my quest to know who I am. More than likely not. I was raised as close to normal as normal can be described. I was given a multitude of opportunities that only in retrospect were appreciated and used as initiative to be more than me. What is me? It is only describable and constantly changing. Only problem is that I've been trying to fossilize in this reality, this yearning to be static, secure, normal. It is this desire that causes detachment from life and adds to my own self-created prison at times. If life is energy, and like the water that flows through the sponge in my earlier analogy, continually in motion, transmuting and transforming, then I am denying my own self by trying to create something that is not real. Part of the path of I is to learn to let go. When we reference ourselves as I, are we referring to the other 6 billion inhabitants on this planet as well? When you flip the word me upside down, what word do you have? The path of I may be a means to step outside yourself and realize that everything has effects. The notions of respect, modesty, empathy can take on new dimensions. The way in which we perceive the world through our eyes may bring forth new depths of understanding. Real eyes. Be afraid and don't be afraid. The answer to fear is in the word itself. Ear is in the word fear. Listen, and in time, the resolution will be known. Be honest with yourself, and you'll be who you are. Get to know and love pain. Here's a wordplay. What is eros spelled backwards? Part of what you may discover in being honest with yourself is that there is a degree of letting go of self-judgment. It's the way in which we judge ourselves that may weigh us down and keep us stuck. If you think about it, these abstract thoughts and notions are very powerful in real-world tangibles. So, what I'm trying to say is that your opinion of yourself is a thought. It's not real. But how you play that thought train out becomes real and grows, sometimes like a disease. Simply put, no judging yourself. It can be negative energy. Nothing wrong with setting higher standards and aspiring to them. Refrain from clipping your own wings. I'm all right as I am because everything I need is right here to live, right now. Doesn't mean I may like it. Speaking of liking things, why do we always try to dissociate from negative feelings but latch on to positive ones? Why not see what it's like to not become attached to positives? Interesting is what you may find. This subsection is also a collection of reflections. According to Chogyam Trungpa, in his book Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, he states, "We deceive ourselves into thinking we are developing spirituality when instead we are strengthening our egocentricity through spiritual techniques. This is fundamental distortion." My take on this concept, which I hope is somewhat close to what he is trying to communicate, is my attempt to bring to your attention some subtle deviances about the process of meditation. Not that meditation is deviant or has a dark side, it's just that there is a level of authenticity that can be fuzzy at times because of elements of our human nature. Just like there can be a pot of gold at the end of the material rainbow, in the arena of meditation or spirituality, the pot of gold appears to be this notion of enlightenment. The pursuit of such a state is goal achievement and objectified. It is apparently something that is highly valued. If one goes into a meditative process with the expectation of someday meeting the Wizard of Oz, you best use the methods to channel that vivid imagination into creative writing. This quest for enlightenment, a state we know nothing about, pushes one to strive for it for the sense of achievement. Another plaque to put on the wall of ego. This is simply and can result in the creation of a struggle. Am I not worthy enough to be enlightened? Hard work always equals success. So if I'm meditating 1 hour a day every day, that counts for something, right? Complacency can be spiritual materialism in another form. You go through the motions of the seated posture and its associated techniques, but although you are there, you are really only daydreaming. This can happen easily. Meditating is very relaxing. One becomes attached to the process of meditating because of the way it makes one feel. You find yourself going through the motions or putting forth a nominal effort just to try and get a real natural high. One uses the term "I meditate" or "I'm a meditator" as a means to impress and stand out from the crowd. I don't think Boy Scouts had a badge for that one, but if they did, it would probably be a scent-free pile of poop. This ego projection is manipulative, control-oriented, and delusional. You partake in meditative practices as a means to grow, yet keep repeating the same behavior patterns that you have deemed unhealthy and warrant change. So, the meditative practice just becomes a lame add-on to the excuse list down the road. You pay lip service to the practice, yet do not embody the means. This subsection is a collection of reflections. The writing is on the wall if we choose to heed it. The ability to harness wisdom without reaching the action threshold of pain and frustration can be avoided and make life simpler in a lot of circumstances. Hurdles to the quality of one's meditative practice: what you eat, lack of exercise or sleep, drugs, alcohol, belief systems, and intentions. If you've had the opportunity to go camping or to a remote area, even the cottage, where you are outside of a city center, there is a silence that is pervasive, and more so in the evening. Tranquility that soothes. That silence is always there, even in the hustle and bustle of the city center. It's apparent at night. You can even sense it in the middle of a storm. Meditation can show you how to source that calm in many circumstances. Realize that there are many different forms of meditation: singular focus, focus on breath, chanting, group, even exercises such as Tai Chi and yoga are meditative, to name a few. Partaking in creative pursuits, such as painting, playing music, or writing, can also be meditative in nature. So, although you may not think you are, there can be ways in which you experience the meditative nature in different forms. Is the effort worth it? Absolutely, unequivocally, without a doubt. I'm skeptical by nature, yet it is in the resolution of many doubts and questions that clarity shines. The process of enduring before the clarity shines through is the real challenge. This is when you realize the beauty of sticking with a meditative process. Any negatives associated with meditating? Truly, it depends on what you mean by negative. If you are talking about the possibility of becoming super sensitive to events and shrinking back because you are unable to handle the emotional overload, this may be possible. For me, I've laughed at myself from time to time because we learn how to speak and communicate, and a meditative pursuit has somehow led me to seek to talk less and withdraw from society. Call it antisocial, if you will. I laugh because I'm in the people business and constantly interact with others, so it's an interesting dynamic for me to try and understand. Another way for me to explain this is that the allure of the way things used to be, like going to the movies, attending parties, sometimes even reading magazines or the newspaper, which has always been a hobby, no longer has the same pull. It's not so relevant to who I am anymore. I still have a thirst for learning, but some situations do nothing for me, so why would I put myself in them? If this is the precursor to being a hermit and living on top of a mountain by myself, well, I'm not so sure that's so negative. Mistakes and getting things wrong used to be a big issue for me. Now, if I'm wrong or have made an error, I don't worry so much about admitting them. Mistakes are a good thing, within reasonable context. This is a first-hand result of learning to communicate sincerely without fear of rebuke, and detaching myself from the self-perception of how others viewed me if I made a mistake. Through meditating, I was able to attain this level of acceptance. Can meditation solve the world's problems? Stepping outside of our own little universe known as ourself and taking a look at the larger community, globally speaking, yes, this is a bold statement indeed. One person at a time, nothing more, nothing less, is how meditation could solve the world's problems that hinge on extensions of the puny ego. The ego serves a purpose, and meditation reveals the purpose. We are all seeds of life that grow according to the inherent makeup residing within and without ourselves. Meditation is about life, is life, therefore knows no boundaries, only connections, universal ones from the smallest to the largest. Imagine 6 billion people surfing inwards on a regular basis to clean house. And as these houses are cleaned, a pervasive sense of peace washes over them. What sort of state would the world be in? I'm not deluded by Disney-esque productions, but the level of authenticity and truth that you can touch and embody opens your eyes to the potential of real change. Not necessarily easy, but beneficial in the long term. So, vote for me. I will set you free.